If you played video games as a kid, they are probably fond memories. Being a child, all the flashing lights and colors were like brain candy. And if you're like me, you might have had some difficulties beating these games. You might have gotten help from an older brother or a parent, but you couldn't bug them for everything. And YouTube was either not a thing or inaccessible at the time, so the only way to overcome hard challenges was to bash your head against a wall to figure out a puzzle or to beat a boss. There were physical guidebooks, but as a 4-year-old, you probably weren't diving into those looking for specific stats combos. Hell, you could probably barely even read then. Games just seemed very tough, and at the time, they were. There wasn't a lot of hand-holding, and you were kind of just thrown into the game without much help. There were easier sections to do at first, but nothing like this.
Go! You can press the A button to jump.
And I don't know about you, but I wasn't playing Nintendogs or Pajama Sam. Games I played felt like climbing a mountain. The one that I'll never forget was this Power Rangers game. I can remember beating the first 2 levels of the game pretty easily, and then I just got smacked around by these enemies. I went back and tried the game out for this video, and it still felt kind of hard. And no, I didn't play through the whole game because I would have gone insane. For another time, I recall leveling up a Masochist to level 76 in Pokemon Ruby, thinking he was going to evolve into something super cool. And this happened at the 4th gym in the Jagged Path, committing genocide on the Spoink population along the way. For any of you non-Pokemon fans out there, no sensible person would ever do this. And the whole operation would have failed anyways, as Machoke only evolves into Machamp after you trade him to someone. You might think I would prefer knowing how this stuff worked before trying it, but I actually would love to be able to play games like this again. No temptations to look things up, the naivety of what I'm doing, and just being imaginative. Every game felt difficult, but that didn't matter since I didn't have any goals playing these games. I felt like a mad scientist trying to mix and match different formulas to see what worked. Somewhere along the way, I lost this feeling playing games. And not just me, but probably you too. You can enjoy Call of Duty or Fortnite, but as you get older, you start to tunnel more and more. It's easy to revert back to games you're comfortable with. Think about it this way. Would you rather waste 30 minutes watching your favorite YouTuber's video, or would you take a chance and watch some unknown YouTuber for 30 minutes? The only thing that matters is what you're more likely to choose. And I'd guess it'd be your favorite creator. Compared to being a kid, you didn't have a favorite. Every new thing was a favorite thing to you. So, where am I going with this? What I talked about so far has nothing to do with the title. You didn't click on this video to think about playing games as a kid, you want to learn why you're a masochist. Well, don't worry. We're going to be going over what drives someone to play through Elden Ring even after dying hundreds of times, or who in their right mind plays getting over it. But first, I need to briefly talk about the appeal of video games in general. Like I said earlier, video games are brain candy to children, a way to keep them occupied and let them enjoy themselves. They're still brain candy to teenagers and adults, but they're usually less potent. This is because your mind develops as you age and you build up a tolerance for it. What also develops as you age are your goals, or lack thereof. As a kid, you probably didn't think much of the future other than being asked what your dream job was. The typical answers being an astronaut, fireman, or baseball player. Well, I guess nowadays their dream job is being a YouTuber. The only goal you had as a kid was to hold hands with your crush or make some sick trades at the lunch table. As time goes on and you learn more about the world, those same dream jobs might have changed, or you might have started setting some goals. Either way, you become more aware of yourself, or at least you're supposed to. As someone who gamed their whole life, I could be the first to tell you that you end up losing a lot of self-thinking time. The only way you figure out your desires is to think or learn about them. And I can guarantee you that isn't happening while grinding out teamfight tactics. This is a problem because the path most people end up taking is one that's predetermined for you. You go to school, then college, you graduate, find a job, then have a family, kids, and retire. And finally, at like 80, you're dead. Things might change a little bit as time passes, but the general direction is not going to change. So the problem is when all you think about is video games, you lose crucial time to think about the future when it matters most. You lose sight of any goals you may have had or never even thought of. I'd argue setting and following through on goals is a skill. And you know the saying that old dogs can't learn new tricks. Now, it's never too late to try to follow through on goals, but that will only come after you lose your masochistic ways. These ways apply to playing single-player games, multiplayer games, co-op games, you name it. It comes down to how you play it. There are debates about whether video game addiction is real or not.
No wonder then the World Health Organization now classifies video gaming disorder as a disease.
As kids sacrifice family, friends, school, even sleep.
Sometimes you could play up to 20 hours straight.
I'm not a psychologist, so I don't really know. What I do know is that video games can definitely ruin lives. And this isn't what I mean when I say you're a masochist. What I really mean is that you're in search of something to strive for, aka a goal, by grinding through tough games. By completing them, you get this feeling of satisfaction, almost as if someone tucked you into bed with a warm blanket on a cold winter night. While playing any game, you become the most important character. There's a reason why the character you play is in there. Save the princess, or kill the bad guy, blah blah blah. You already know all the single player tropes. A more ambiguous example is being the best player on your Rocket League team. You feel needed and the goal is clearly explained. But this comes with some baggage. Usually it's the pressure to do good or you fail. But those failures are what make the feeling of winning feel so good. And what type of games force you to fail a lot? Difficult games. Some people can't stomach the feeling of losing over and over and over again. Others can't play anything except something that challenges them. People can play how they want, who really cares? To expand more on the latter though, there are 3 reasons why people play difficult games. The first one is to make money or grow online. People love watching others suffer, so they play games like Only Up or do stupid challenges. The second reason that you play them is because hard games are more comfortable goals than real ones. To beat a hard game or get a high rank in League, you have to set a goal and have a plan. The difficulty of the gaming goal compared to a real-life one is insignificant. The difference lies in what you have to do to achieve it. One requires you to sit at a desk playing games all day, while the other requires you to go out in the world and try to accomplish shit. The third and final reason is that you enjoy suffering and crave that feeling when you finish that tough game. You become like a drug addict, needing harder and harder games to satisfy yourself. The problem is that you probably get good at the game you're grinding, so you have to hinder yourself or try a new game. Out of the 3, I'm guessing that the second and third reasons are the ones that apply to you. I'm going to use Elden Ring as an example. For those of you that don't know, Elden Ring is a game made by From Software, the creators of Dark Souls. Notorious for their difficulty, beating them can provide you a badge of honor. The game is fair to a fault and is basically all skill, so if you die, you can blame yourself. Well, mostly. After someone gets very good at the game, they will sometimes graduate into playing it without dying or even naked. And this is only possible because it's so fair. Souls-like games are appealing to a lot of people. Just Elden Ring alone has sold almost 21 million copies worldwide, so there's obviously a market for it. For me, this was my first Souls-like game, and let me tell you, I was pretty quickly hooked. The game is massive and a true open-world game, so it was easy to get lost. After a while, I finally made it to the first major boss. And after about 15 seconds in the fight, I was gutted like a fish. If I could go back to when I first played the game, I would have kept track of how many times I died. My guess is at least over 50 times. The only hard games I played before this was Hollow Knight and some platformers like Super Meat Boy. The Hollow Knight skills I learned translated pretty well, and it was the main reason why I even decided to try Elden Ring in the first place. It was the first game that forced me not to just button spam or get overpowered. The part that made me rethink life was fighting the Soul Master. Every time I got up to the fight, I would use this Attack on Titan theme. And I died so many times trying, every time I hear that music now, I shiver at the thought of Soul Master. The fight honestly isn't that hard, I was just really bad at the game. And to this day, I'm still not great at either one of the games. But playing Pokemon or Call of Duty your whole life doesn't really help where you have to be good at timing. So I never really had a lot of practice as a kid. Now this fight ran parallel to the market one. I'm pretty sure I played the same song during that fight too, and I eventually beat Soul Master and carried on with the game. There were other tough parts, but none of them stuck out to me like he did. Like Soul Master, and this did take some time, but I also eventually defeated Market. I redid the fight for this video, and it was as tough as I remembered. My controller was almost broken a couple times while attempting this. The first time I beat him, I needed to use a summon to help distract and poison him, so I felt like I came a long way since then. And after this, I went on my way, but you didn't come here for that. If you really want to know about the game, you can either play it yourself, or you can go watch a review or something. I'm not going to sit here and lie to you. I gave up beating the game after almost plugging in 100 hours. I got to the fire giant and just lost motivation to keep chipping away at him. But I did manage to beat this devil after God knows how many tries. That feeling was basically enough to stop playing, though as I'm making this video, the urge to replay the game is increasing. If you haven't played Elden Ring before, I probably didn't do a good job of selling it to you. After all, I made it sound like it was hell of the video game, but if you played through it before and got through some of the tough parts, you knew exactly what I'm talking about. The reason why I played through the game was the feeling of satisfaction after beating a tough boss. Now, you might have beaten the game but wanted some more, so you decided to buy Dark Souls 3. On the surface, this seems like a good idea, but after playing through Elden Ring, you probably got pretty damn good at the gameplay. So this isn't to say Dark Souls 3 didn't provide a challenge, but it didn't provide the difficulty you thought it was going to. Some people probably like the high you get from being powerful, and then there's others who want to feel helpless at the game they're playing. If you're this type of person, then you probably went and searched for a different type of game, one that is hard and foreign. Plus, it'll make you rusty at Souls-like mechanics, making those games feel tougher if you ever go back to them. There are some options, but the one you settle on is a game from a couple years ago. The game is called Getting Over It. It's more frustrating than anything else as the mechanics are funky and the goal of the game is to piss you off.
Now I know, most likely you're watching this on YouTube or Twitch, while some dude with 10 million views does it for you, like a baby bird being fed chewed up food. That's culture too.
But something inside of you makes you want to keep climbing, even if you fall a million times. In a way, it's like you're trying to rebel against the game, sticking out your middle finger saying fuck you to the narrator. The game is honestly quite short, but it feels longer because when you're bad at it, you have to reclimb a lot. And take this background gameplay. It is the current world record run by Blastbolt. This is the guy who must have put in a crazy amount of time into practicing this. The game is very easy to him at this point, but chasing a world record in anything is a very tough challenge. So even if he's good at the game, there's still a lot of failures, and with them lead to a bigger and bigger hit from the winning drug. That being achieving the world record. Comparison's sake, here's what it looked like when I first played it. It was a painful experience and I would have preferred to play something else, but some unknown force kept me playing it. And sadly, that meant I stuck with it for a long time in order to beat it. Eventually though, my plan did pay off. Finally. Oh my god. I thought I was never going to beat this thing, holy shit. And as draining as it was, I did feel like I just won the lottery. The way that beating or winning in hard games can give a feeling that may be absent in the rest of your life. I emphasize difficult games by my standard, but any game can be difficult based on the way you play through them, or even just your skill level. Everyone has their own path playing video games, and there's no reason to compare yourself to how others like to play them. There are countless individual stories about overcoming hard challenges in games. What the actual challenge is doesn't really matter. It's the reason you search out these challenges. Some could be that you get inspired by watching someone on YouTube do some cool thing, or maybe you're just looking for some direction in life. If neither of those are the answer, it's probably that you're looking to use the length it takes to beat a challenge to procrastinate. I briefly mentioned it earlier, but multiplayer games also provide the same feeling, especially if you play ranked. The difference being that this is a microdose due to the amount of times you have to overcome a challenge. I doubt you'll be losing 50 games of Valorant in a row like you would against an Elden Ring boss. The other difference is that you're typically playing against people the same skill level, so in a head-to-head matchup, the battles aren't unfair. The reason why it is difficult though is that there's pressure built up for every game. You cannot just reset a run or redo it like a boss fight. There are no retries once the match is over, and no matter how much you improve, your opponent also improves. The best way to look at playing multiplayer games is like running on a treadmill. You can go faster and faster, but you can never outrun the tread you're running on. Multiplayer games can't be beaten like single-player ones. so they are perfect subjects to sink in time to avoid doing homework or going to bed. You can convince yourself that you're doing something productive while grinding for that next rank. Since it's usually challenging at a certain point, you can get that satisfying feeling of achievement, and all this is coming from the comfort of your own desk. The problem with this is that you can lose yourself in forgetting to do that important assignment, or even something simple like taking care of your health. You are hurting yourself in the process of grinding out League of Legends, whether you realize it or not. I'm not making this video to judge anyone. I'm basically talking about myself through the whole video. If anything, this video was a way to vent about the state of modern society. It's tough to find a purpose anymore. I try not to be a doomer, but the future just doesn't look great and we're all playing a rigged game that doesn't benefit us anymore. This is where difficult games come in. It gives you a sense of responsibility or it can bring back those nostalgic feelings. And you know what? There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. If you want to be a masochist and torture yourself playing games, then so be it. Let yourself drown in pain and sorrow. I'll be right there with you. Sorry the video is ending on a bad note. I just felt like I had to get this out there. And if you're looking for answers to help you out, well, I can't really help you with that since I need to find them myself. But I appreciate you watching and subscribe if you want to grow together.